Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
The alien empath absorbed my grief. Now she's addicted to my pain. She took away my sorrow after I lost everything. I didn't know her kind experiences emotion as a drug. Now she needs my trauma to survive. The rain hammered against my windshield as I drove home from the cemetery, each drop echoing the hollow ache in my chest. Sarah's funeral had been that morning. My wife, my anchor, gone in a senseless accident. The empty passenger seat beside me felt like a void threatening to swallow me whole. The headlights caught something impossible ahead. A twisted metal shape steaming in the middle of the highway. Not a car, something organic yet technological, pulsing with bioluminescent veins. I slammed the brakes, hydroplaning to a stop just feet away. Steam hissed from fractures in the craft's hull. Through the translucent membrane that served as a window, I glimpsed movement, something struggling inside. My rational mind screamed to call the authorities, but grief had left me hollow, indifferent to consequences. I approached on unsteady legs. The craft's surface yielded under my touch like warm flesh. Inside, suspended in viscous fluid, hung a figure that was almost human. Elongated limbs, alabaster skin with an opalescent sheen, and large eyes that seemed to capture starlight. Those eyes found mine, and suddenly the crushing weight of Sarah's death intensified tenfold. I gasped, stumbling backward as waves of anguish crashed over me. The being's eyes widened, pupils dilating like a junkie hitting the vein. The craft's membrane split with a wet sound, fluid gushing across the asphalt. The creature, she was definitely female despite her alien features, collapsed to the ground, convulsing. Her mouth opened in what might have been ecstasy or agony. "Please," she whispered in perfect English, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "More." I didn't understand then what I'd stumbled into. I thought I was saving her. I was wrong. I dragged her to my truck, her skin cold and slick against my hands. She was surprisingly light, her bones hollow like a bird's. The rational part of my mind that still functioned wondered if I was having a breakdown, hallucinating this entire encounter. "Hospital?" I muttered, but she gripped my wrist with surprising strength. "No," she gasped. "They cannot help with my kind of wound." Her eyes fixed on mine again, and I felt that strange tugging sensation, as if something vital was being drawn from my chest. "You are in such beautiful pain." The words should have disturbed me, but grief had numbed my self-preservation instincts. I drove her to my house instead, Sarah's house, where every corner held memories that cut like glass. She struggled to walk, leaning heavily against me as we entered the living room. The wedding photos on the mantel caught her attention immediately. Her pupils dilated again, and I felt another wave of that draining sensation. "She meant everything to you," she said, settling onto the couch. "Not a question. The loss is exquisite." "What are you?" I asked, pouring myself a whiskey with shaking hands. "My name is Zephra. I am what your language might call an empath, though that word is insufficient." She touched her chest where a human heart would be. "My people feed on emotion as yours feed on food. Pain, joy, fear. They all have different flavors, different nutritional values." I laughed bitterly. "And I'm what, your dinner?" Her expression shifted, something almost like shame crossing her features. "Your grief is the purest I have ever tasted. Most humans' emotions are muddled, contaminated with other feelings. But yours," she shuddered with what looked like pleasure, "it is devastating. Perfect." Over the following days, something strange began happening. Each time Zephra fed on my grief, and I found myself seeking out her presence, craving the numbing relief that followed. The crushing weight on my chest lessened slightly. She explained her kind's biology while recovering her strength. The Vorthak were emotional parasites from a dying world, traveling between stars in search of sentient species capable of producing the complex emotional compounds they needed to survive. "We do not harm," she insisted when I asked if she was killing me. "We redistribute. The pain you carry would destroy you eventually. I simply absorb the excess." It felt too good to be true, this promise of healing. For the first time since Sarah's death, I could breathe without feeling like I was drowning. I could think of my wife without immediately breaking down. Zephyra grew stronger and more beautiful as she fed. Her skin gained a healthy luminescence. Her movements became fluid and graceful. She told me stories of her world. Crystalline cities that sang with harvested emotions. Vast gardens where feelings grew like flowers. "You could come with me," she said one evening as we sat in comfortable silence. "When my people arrive to retrieve me, your capacity for emotion is remarkable. You would be valued among us." The offer should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself considering it. What did I have left on earth? My job felt meaningless. My friends' attempts at comfort rang hollow. Only with Zephyra did I feel understood. "What would happen to me there?" I asked. She hesitated before answering. "You would live in comfort. We would care for you, ensure you remained healthy and productive." The word productive sent a chill down my spine, but I pushed the feeling aside. 3 weeks passed in a haze of artificial peace. I stopped going to work, stopped answering my phone. Zephyra and I had developed a routine. She would feed in the mornings when my grief was sharpest, then spend the day telling me about the stars while I recovered. But something was changing. The relief I felt after her feeding sessions grew shorter each day. The grief returned more quickly, more intensely, as if my emotional wounds were deepening rather than healing. "It's normal," Zephyra assured me when I mentioned this. "Your system is adjusting, producing more to compensate for what I remove." I wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at me. I'd begun having vivid dreams about Sarah. Not memories, but twisted nightmares where she blamed me for moving on, for allowing an alien to devour our love. Worse were the dreams about the accident itself. In reality, I hadn't been there when the drunk driver ran the red light. But in my dreams, I was driving. I was the one who made the fatal mistake. I would wake sobbing, and Zephyra would be there immediately, ready to feed on my fresh anguish. "The dreams are your mind processing trauma," she explained, but her eyes gleamed with hunger as she spoke. "They will pass." I noticed other changes too. My reflection looked gaunt, hollow-eyed. I'd lost weight despite eating regularly. My hands shook when Zephyra wasn't nearby, and I found myself timing her absences, counting the minutes until she returned. One morning, I caught her studying me with a clinical expression I'd never seen before. "What is it?" I asked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Nothing, Marcus. You are simply ripening beautifully." The revelation came by accident. I was cleaning out Sarah's things, a task I'd been avoiding for months, when I found her laptop hidden beneath a stack of medical journals. She'd been researching something before her death, bookmarks leading to obscure scientific papers about parasitic relationships and emotional manipulation. One document made my blood freeze. A case study about a patient who'd reported encounters with entities that fed on human emotion. The patient had died by suicide 3 months later. His journal entries describing an overwhelming compulsion to manufacture trauma for his ethereal companion. I confronted Zephyra that evening, laptop in hand. She was waiting in the living room, more radiant than ever, her alien beauty now seeming predatory rather than otherworldly. "You lied to me," I said, showing her the screen. "You're not healing me. You're making it worse." Her composure cracked for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "You do not understand the complexity of our relationship, Marcus. Yes, I amplify your production of emotional compounds, but you're a drug dealer and I'm your junkie." The words tasted bitter. "You've been manufacturing my pain." She stood slowly, her movements now seeming less graceful than predatory. "Your wife suspected, didn't she? Sarah was researching us before her death. Such a clever woman." The implication hit me like a physical blow. "The accident was an accident," Zephyra said quickly. "We do not kill directly, but perhaps her research made her distracted. Careless." I stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time. The perfect features, the hypnotic eyes, the way she'd appeared just when I was most vulnerable. None of it was coincidence. "How long have you been watching me?" Her smile was answer enough. I tried to make her leave, screaming until my voice went raw, but Zephyra simply absorbed my rage like a sponge soaking up spilled wine. Each outburst only seemed to strengthen her, her skin glowing brighter with every emotion I threw at her. "You cannot survive without me now," she said calmly. "Your emotional regulation systems have adapted to my presence. Without regular feeding sessions, the accumulated trauma will overwhelm you completely." She was right. When I locked myself in the bedroom, trying to deny her access, the grief crashed back with devastating force. Not just Sarah's death, but every loss I'd ever experienced, amplified beyond human endurance. My childhood dog, my father's disapproval, every rejection, every failure, every moment of shame, all of it flooding back at once. I lasted 6 hours before I broke down the door myself, sobbing and begging for relief. Zephyra was waiting, patient as a spider in her web. "There is no shame in accepting what you need, Marcus. We can continue as we were. I will take away the pain, and you can live." But living wasn't what she was offering. As she fed on my synthesized anguish, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. My reflection looked like a husk, a shell containing nothing but grief produced for alien consumption. "What happens when you've drained me completely?" I asked. "That will not happen. You are far too valuable to waste." Her fingers traced my cheek with mock tenderness. "My people will arrive soon. On our world, you will be paired with others like yourself. Together, you will produce such exquisite suffering that entire cities will feast on your offerings." The image she painted, humans kept like livestock, bred and traumatized for alien consumption, filled me with a horror that transcended grief. That night, while Zephyra slept in her trance-like state, I searched Sarah's research more thoroughly. Hidden in encrypted files, I found her complete investigation into the Vortak presence on Earth. She'd discovered they'd been here for decades, gradually infiltrating human society by targeting the emotionally vulnerable. The entities couldn't be killed by conventional means. They existed partially in a dimension humans couldn't perceive. But Sarah had found references to their one weakness: overwhelming emotional feedback. Like an amplifier pushed beyond its limits, they could be destroyed by exposure to emotions too intense for their systems to process. She'd been planning to test the theory when the accident occurred. Or perhaps it hadn't been an accident at all. Perhaps the Vortak had detected her research and eliminated the threat. I found her materials hidden in the basement, electromagnetic field generators jury-rigged from old stereo equipment, designed to amplify and focus human emotional output. Sarah had always been brilliant with electronics. The plan was insane, but it was the only chance I had. I would have to generate emotions so powerful, so concentrated, that Zephyra would be forced to absorb more than she could handle. The problem was fueling such intensity without artificial trauma. I'd been living on manufactured grief for weeks. My genuine emotions had been deadened by overexposure. Then I realized what I had to do. I had to remember Sarah as she really was, not the sanitized memory Zephyra had been feeding on. I had to recall not just the loss, but the love. All of it, pure and unfiltered. It would probably kill me. The emotional shock of experiencing such intensity without Zephyra's numbing intervention would be devastating. But I would take her with me. I spent the day setting up Sarah's equipment while Zephyra rested, telling her I was organizing my wife's belongings for donation. The electromagnetic field generators hummed quietly in the walls, invisible to alien senses but ready to amplify whatever emotions I could summon. That evening, I sat across from Zephyra in the living room, the space between us crackling with invisible energy. She sensed something different immediately. "You feel strange tonight," she said, her predatory eyes narrowing. "More intense than usual." "I've been thinking about Sarah," I said truthfully. "Really thinking about her." Zephyra's pupils dilated with anticipation. "Show me." I closed my eyes and let the memories flow. Not the hollow grief she'd been feeding on, but the full spectrum of my relationship with Sarah. Our first meeting at the bookstore where she worked, her laugh when I'd awkwardly quoted poetry while buying a cookbook, the way she'd looked in her wedding dress, radiant with joy and possibility. Zephyra gasped, her feeding reflex engaging automatically. But this wasn't the processed emotion she was used to. This was raw, unfiltered love amplified by Sarah's own equipment. "What?" she started to say, then convulsed as the emotional overload hit her system. I pushed deeper into the memories. Sarah's hands on mine as we painted our first apartment. The quiet Sunday mornings reading newspapers in bed. Her excitement when she got the job at the research facility. The way she'd hum while cooking, completely off-key but perfect to my ears. The love hurt more than the grief ever had. But it was clean pain, honest pain. Zephyr writhed on the couch, her luminescent skin flickering like a malfunctioning light bulb. "Stop!" she gasped. "Too much, too pure." I didn't stop. I couldn't. The emotional floodgates had opened completely, and years of authentic feeling poured through the amplification field. Not just love for Sarah, but love for everything she'd represented. Hope, possibility, the belief that life could be beautiful despite its inevitable sorrows. Zephyr's form began to flicker, her perfect alien features distorting as her dimensional stability failed. She reached toward me with desperate hands, but her touch no longer brought relief, only feedback that intensified the emotional storm. "Please," she whispered, her voice becoming static. "I need the pain, not this. This is what you really stole from me," I said through tears that felt cleansing for the first time in months. "Not just my grief, my capacity for joy. My ability to remember love without it being processed through trauma." The equipment Sarah had built whined at frequencies that made my teeth ache. Zephyr's body convulsed, translucent blood leaking from her nose and ears. Her feeding organs, adapted to consume negative emotions, couldn't process the purified love flooding through the amplification field. I thought of Sarah's last words to me. "I love you," spoken sleepily as she left for work that final morning. Simple words I'd replayed a million times in grief, but now I heard them as they were meant to be. A gift, not a wound. Zephyr screamed, the sound breaking across dimensions I couldn't perceive. Her form began to dissolve, the alien beauty that had entranced me revealing itself as a projection, a lure designed to make prey compliant. "My people," she gasped. "They will come. Find others. Let them come," I said. Sarah left blueprints, instructions. Other people can build what she built. Her final look was one of pure hatred before she collapsed into luminescent dust that dissolved like sugar in rain. The silence after Zephyr's death was profound. Not the hollow quiet of grief, but the deep peace of a storm finally passing. I sat among the scattered remains of Sarah's equipment, my body trembling from emotional exhaustion, but my mind clear for the first time in months. The withdrawal was brutal. Without Zephyr's artificial regulation, every suppressed emotion crashed back at once. But it was honest pain now, not the manufactured trauma she'd been feeding me. I grieved cleanly, completely, the way humans were meant to process loss. I spent the next weeks compiling Sarah's research, adding my own testimony about the Vortak infiltration. The authorities were skeptical until other cases emerged. People reporting similar encounters with beautiful strangers who'd appeared during their darkest moments. Sarah's electromagnetic amplification technique worked on other Vortak too. A network of survivors began forming, sharing equipment designs and supporting each other through the recovery process. We called ourselves the Sarah Network, named for the woman who'd discovered how to fight back. The dreams about Sarah changed. Instead of manufactured nightmares, I began having gentle dreams where she appeared as herself, brilliant, funny, completely human. In these dreams, she wasn't a victim or a symbol of my loss, but simply the woman I'd loved, checking to make sure I was healing properly. "You saved me twice," I told her dream self one night. "Once by loving me, and once by showing me how to love properly." She smiled with that slightly crooked grin I'd fallen for years ago. "That's what love does, Marcus. It saves us from the things that would consume us." I woke peacefully, tears on my cheeks but hope in my heart. The grief would always be with me. That was human, natural, healthy. But it was mine now, not some alien parasite's feast. Outside, dawn broke over a world where emotional predators hunted the vulnerable. But humans were fighting back, armed with love amplified to lethal frequencies. Sarah would have been proud.